Hello everyone, Mr. Love here, coming to you from the diesel shop. Today we're just going to get to know the tractor here. It's a John Deere 5055E with a loader assembly on it. We're going to show you the basic functions of everything and how to operate it safely. Let's get started.
Okay, let's just get familiar with the parts of the tractor. Back here we have the rear tire. Bolted to the rear tire we have the rear weights. Here we have the steps to get onto the tractor. This is the only way you should be getting on and off the tractor is using the steps and the hand grab. Always use 3 points of contact. 3 points of contact, it's either 2 feet in one hand or 2 hands and 1 foot. So I'll show you the proper way to get up there once we're ready to get up there. We have our toolbox. We just keep our pins and stuff in there that we would need for hooking on any equipment or anything. Front tire, loader assembly, hydraulic cylinders for the loader. This one here lifts it up and down. This front cylinder here tilts the bucket back and forth. Down here we have our lock-in mechanism for the bucket. It's a quick attach bucket, so if we pull this pin out, the bucket can come right off. We have our bucket. The silver rod you see here just tells you the angle that the bucket is at for when you're scooping up dirt or something off the ground. You can tell where your bucket is, if it's flat or not. It has a little notch on there where you can line it up with this pointer right here. Tells you that the bucket is flat on the ground. We have all our hydraulic lines over here. These are all quick attach lines. You want to make sure they're all seated good. There's not oil all around them. This loader assembly here is made to come off pretty fast. You just disconnect these lines, a couple pins, a couple special maneuvers with it, and this loader will come right off for you. We have our battery box down here. You just pull the pins out. The door opens. You can visually inspect your battery in there. Make sure there's not any corrosion or anything on it. Looks nice and clean. We have our rear work lights. We have our hazards on both sides. We have our rear hydraulic hookups if we have any attachment that uses hydraulics for the rear. We have our 3-point hitch. We got 2 bottom arms. Here. Here. And we have an upper one here that makes the 3 points. That's for when you have an attachment on the back that you want to raise and lower. You hook it into that, and you can control it from the seat of it going up and down. We have our regular hitch on the back. There's a pin in there. If you're hooking to a hay wagon or something, you would attach it to there. Down in here, we have our PTO, our power takeoff. This is where you would attach any spinning equipment, like a mower, rototiller, our dyno, stuff like that. We have our fuel tank. We'll use the fuel gauge on the dash to check our level on that. It's kind of hard to see into this tank. We go over here, we could raise the hood. We just pull on this pin and lift up. Okay, we have our engine in here. There's not too much we have to do up underneath the hood. on a daily basis on this, just check our coolant level. You can see we have our coolant tank here. We have hot full and cold full. Hasn't been ran at all yet today, so we should be at the cold full, somewhere in between there. You can't really overfill this. If you fill it to the hot full with a cold, once it heated up, it would spit out the little overflow hose there, go on the ground. We want to avoid getting a lot of antifreeze on the ground, but that's what this tank is made for. Over on the right hand side here, we have where we fill and check the oil. This yellow cap here is where we fill the oil if we have to. Down here you see we have a dipstick. We'll pull out our dipstick. We're going to wipe off the dipstick with a clean rag. We're going to reinstall the dipstick into the tractor. And we're going to pull it back out. Now we can check our level on there. We're right at the full mark there. Oil looks nice and clean. So now we'll wipe this off with a rag again and we'll be good to go. Okay, we wiped it off with a rag. Now we're going to push it back down into its tube there. Make sure it's in all the way. You can access this with the hood down. You want to always make sure though that the loader's on the ground. You never want to have the loader up in the air walking underneath there. Something could fail on the hydraulic system or someone accidentally hit the lever and that bucket would come down on you. Okay, we're sitting in the seat. Now we can check out our controls up here. Down here we have the key. We just turn the key on one click. Our gauges will go through its sequence. We can check our fuel gauge, see how much fuel we have in here. If it was running, you can see our coolant temperature gauge. Here we have our RPMs, the revolutions per minute of the engine. Down here we have our hour meter. And then when we're moving, it'll also tell us how fast we're moving. We have an N here telling us that we're in neutral. There's other lights that come on depending on functions. If we turn on the PTO, we'll have a light come on. If we have any failures or anything, we'll have a stop engine light or a check engine light. If we turn on our four-ways or anything, we'll have indications that they're going on. Down here we have our light switch. We could have just the hazards going. This is a good idea if you're running down the road or running where you're around a lot of people. Or we could turn it so we have the lights on with the hazards. Here's our lights with the hazards on with high beams. And here's with just our lights on with the hazards off. So turn that back off. This switch here you do not have to worry about unless you're doing maintenance on here. This is how you regenerate the DPF system. Over here we have a turn signal switch for left turn, right turn. This control down here is the tilt for the steering wheel. We just lift up on that and we can adjust the steering wheel where we want it. Over on the left hand foot side we have the clutch pedal. On the right hand foot side, we have the brake pedals. Whenever you're going to stop with this, always have the two brake pedals hooked together. There's a little latch right here. So with that latch down, you can press anywhere on the pedals, they'll both go down. If you have the latch up, you would use this for power turning, or if you're losing traction on one tire, you could tap that brake. Say I wanted to make a really tight left-hand turn, I would turn the steering wheel so I would be turning left. Then I could step on this brake and it'll help me turn a little bit, but it's pretty unnecessary with these modern tractors. They have a pretty tight turning radius. So mostly we're just going to be using this as a regular brake pedal. So we'll just keep that locked there. This little orange pedal off to the side here, this is the throttle pedal. The farther you push it down, the higher the RPMs of the engine go, the more it revs up. Here we have our bucket control. So if I pull it back, the bucket will go up. If I push it forward, the bucket will go down. If I pull it to the left, the bucket's going to curl. If I push it to the right, the bucket's going to curl the other way. Over here, I have my hand throttle control. Little turtle means low RPMs for the engine. Rabbit means fast RPMs for the engine. So I can either use my throttle pedal on the floor, or I can use this to rev up the engine. This knob here is to turn on our PTO. The controls down here on the right hand side, we have for the 3-point hitch. We could raise and lower it. Pull this lever back, it'll raise the pull this lever back, it'll raise our 3-point hitch up. This lever here is for the rear hydraulics. If we had an attachment on there that needed the hydraulics, this is where you would control it from. This little rod down here is the 4-wheel drive. If you pull up on it, the 4-wheel drive's engaged. There'll be a light on the dash that comes on. If you push down on it, the 4-wheel drive's disengaged. It's just back to rear wheel drive. Here we have one of our shifters. So the shifter on the left-hand side of the seat has neutral. Then it has A, B, and C. So if we put it in A, this is going to be the slowest of the gearboxes. So this is going to be all the really low gears. If we put it up in B, it's going to be the medium gears. Then if we put it in C, it's going to be the high gears. These are just the transportation gears in C, so we will not be using those around here. So A, if we're doing something that we need low speed for. B, if we need something, medium speed, like if we're taking the trash or something out, where we could go, 3 or 4 miles an hour instead of 1 or 2 miles an hour. So these are where we select the gearboxes. Remember A, B, and C. Okay, so we got it selected in the B gearbox right now. Then our shifter over on the right hand side, this has 4 gears on it. First, second, third, fourth, park, and neutral. So right now it's in park. It's all the way up and over. So if I pull it out of there, now we're in neutral. You'd always tell neutral because it moves back and forth freely. So if I wanted to put it in gear, I would just pull it over, then push it up into that gear. That's first gear there. If I pulled back right now, that'd be second gear, third gear, fourth gear. And if I go all the way up and over again, that's park. It locks into the park mode. So to take it out of there, you have to push it forward a little bit to get it to come out. So we are not going to be shifting this like we would a normal car. You really could if you're working out in the field or something and you needed to take off with more power than getting up to speed. But for what we do around here, we're just going to select our gear. So say we want to just, be in second gear, we'll just put it in second gear and we'll leave it there. We're not going to be shifting on the go or anything for what we're doing with it. So just select what gear you want to begin with and go from there. Okay, after we selected our gear, this one up here is for forward and reverse, a shuttle shifter. So if I push this forward, we'll go forward. If I pull it back, you'll hear the backup beeper go, and we'll be in reverse. Pedal by our right heel here. This is the differential lock. If you start to spin a little bit, you just push down on that, and it would engage both rear axles. That way, all the power goes to both rear wheels instead of just one. You do not want to hit this while you're trying to make a turn or anything. It's really rough on the differential, and it'll be really hard to turn. So only use this if you're in mud. Then just push down on it, and it'll engage it. So if you're spinning, just push down a little bit. If you think you're going to need that added thing to, pull out a stump or something, you can just push down on it, get going. Won't have to use it too much, especially with a 4-wheel drive tractor, but it's there just in case we need it. Okay, that's all the basic functions that we need to talk about today. So let's shut the hood and then we'll do some operation. To shut the hood, all you gotta do is pull down on it. Push down hard, just make sure it's locked in. Make sure it doesn't pop right back up on you. We're good to go. First, we're just going to walk around the tractor. We're going to do a circle of safety, inspecting everything on the tractor and around the tractor to make sure everything's operational and there's no dangers. So as we walk around, we'll inspect the tires, make sure they're fully inflated. Look underneath, we'll make sure there's no puddles or anything forming of oil or fuel. We'll check our loader assembly, make sure there's no hydraulic leaks. Make sure there's no cracks or anything in the loader frame. Check our front tire, make sure that's inflated. Look around the tires, make sure there's no cats or other stuff that you don't want to run over up underneath the tires. We'll check our loader assembly, make sure everything looks good up here. We will check our bucket up in the front, make sure everything looks good on it. It's nice and clean. Check the mounts on the bucket, make sure it's fully attached. This is a quick attach bucket, so if we pull the lever on the other side, we can take this bucket right off. So make sure everything's locked into place, the pins are in there. Same as the other side, we're looking for hydraulic leaks. We're looking for cracks, anything that looks out of the ordinary. Check the front tire on this side. Make sure our pins are in our battery box so our battery doesn't fall out in the field or whatever we're doing with it. Okay, rear tire. Remember, we're not just checking the tires to see if they're squatting or anything. We're also looking around them and under them. Make sure there's nothing that's going to be ran over when we start moving. Okay, come to the back. Make sure we have on our slow-moving vehicle triangle back there. Make sure everything looks good. Make sure there's not oil coming out of the PTO shaft there. Make sure the three... Okay, we're up on the seat now. So let's fire this tractor up. We'll check our shifter for our right hand. Make sure it's in park. Make sure our shuttle shifter is in neutral. You can start it right now, but force a habit for me, and it's always a good idea. I always like to push down on the clutch. Okay, so we're going to turn our key. We're not going to turn it all the way to start it right now. We're just going to turn it one notch. All our gauges are going to do a self-check. If it was cold out right now, there'd be a wait to start light. So once that wait to start light goes off, then it's okay to start. What that's doing is letting the glow plugs do their job to warm up the cylinders so the diesel fuel will ignite easier. So it's always a good idea. Turn the key, wait a few seconds, make sure all the indicator lights go off that need to go off. And now we're good to turn the key to the start position. So we're going to just turn the key. You hear it cranking over. Once it fires, we're going to let go of the key. We're not going to keep holding it on there. It's not good for the starter. So let's turn it. Okay, so we got our tractor fired up now. Okay, our tractor's fired up. Still have our foot down on the clutch. We're going to now put it into gear. Our left-hand side shifter, we're going to make sure it's in low range, A. The shifter over on this side. So the A gearbox is pretty slow, so for this one, we're going to put it up in 3. We're going to back out of the barn here. Okay, so we got to raise up our loader, So like we talked about, you pull back on this, it raises our loader up in the air. See, it raises it up. If I push forward on it, it would lower the loader down. If I tilted it to the right, it would dump the bucket. Go to the left, it'll tilt the bucket back. So as we're moving around, we'll have the bucket tilted back. We'll have the loader about a foot off the ground. We don't want it too high in the air. The higher we have it, the more unstable the tractor is going to be, and the more dangerous for bystanders. Okay, so we're all in gear. Foot's on the clutch. I'm going to pull back on this lever here, put us in reverse. You'll hear the beeper sound. I'm going to slowly release the clutch. As I release the clutch, we're going to start moving. So make sure you fully release the clutch. You can give it a little throttle now. Okay, we're outside with it here. We'll move away from my car a little bit. Okay, now that we're safely outside, now we can make it a little faster if we wanted to. Make sure we're in neutral here. The end will come back on the gate, on the dash. We'll put it up into the B transmission. So left-hand side shifter, we'll put it in the B. So the left-hand side transmission, we'll put it up into the B gearbox. Over here, we're still in the 3 range, so that'll be good for moving around. Okay, so foot's down on the clutch. We're gonna put it up into forward, and we're gonna slowly release the clutch. Okay, now that we're moving, we can either give it some gas with the pedal down here, or we can use our little hand control over here that we talked about. Personally, I like using the hand control better. With my big feet, it's a little hard to use the throttle pedal, especially when they're way off to the side. So I like using a little hand control here. You can see we have the RPMs on the dash. Plus down here we have the speed that we're going. Right now we're going 3 miles an hour. You should never be going above 3.5, 4 miles an hour here. Definitely try to keep it under 3 at all times. We'll put her down in the A transmission. Put her in forward. We're going to pull into the shop. You can see it's quite a bit slower. We're only doing 1 mile an hour now instead of the 3 miles an hour we were doing. pushing on the clutch to slow down. If we're rolling for any reason, we'd hit the brakes, but you really just need the clutch to stop. Put it in neutral here. Put our transmission in the park. Okay, we're going to flatten out our bucket so it sits flat on the ground. It's a little hard to see, but there's a little notch on our rod up there that we talked about in front of the tractor. So we'll line up that notch so we know we're nice and flat, and we'll lower it down to the ground. You don't have to lower it too far. If you lower it down too much, it will lift the front of the tractor. So just a little bit of tension so it's just sitting on the ground. Okay, we'll slow our throttle all the way down now. Now it's safe to shut the key off. And now using our 3 points of contact, we can get back off the tractor. Okay, tractors are very dangerous machines. A lot of people get hurt each year on them. There's a few things that you should always know to keep you safe. First thing is, if there's any attachment on there, like a loader, a backhoe, any sort of plow or anything on the back, never walk underneath it when it's up in the air. These hydraulic lines could fail at any time. All it takes is this line to blow out right here, and this loader will come crashing down. Or if somebody accidentally bumped the control up in the seat, that loader will come crashing down on your head, and then the only way to get it off of you would be to start the tractor and raise it up. So if you're by yourself, you get pinned underneath and get seriously injured or die. So never walk under a loader that's up in the air. I know it's very tempting to walk under a loader when it's up in the air, especially since you could access the rest of the tractor a lot easier now, but you never do it for safety reasons. If we needed to access this tractor compartment right now under the hood to work on anything, we'd have to put cylinder locks on this cylinder to keep it up in the air, or put a hoist up above it with chains holding the bucket up in the air, just in case something failed, it wouldn't come down on us. The most dangerous part to any piece of equipment is something that spins. More people get injured from the PTO shaft every year than any other part of any farm equipment. Almost all newer equipment has a safety guard on the PTO shaft to help reduce the risk of this, but whenever there's a spinning part, avoid it at all costs. So if we were going to hook something to this PTO shaft down here, we would make sure the tractor was shut off. That way there's no chance of us getting injured. Always use your four ways when going down the road so traffic can see you. Always have on a slow moving vehicle symbol on the back of your tractor. If your tractor is equipped with a rollover protection bar, make sure it's up in the air. These are foldable, so if you had to go into a tight garage or underneath trees or something, you couldn't lower this down, but always make sure it's up in the air. Whenever that is up in the air, you should always wear your seatbelt when operating equipment. If for some reason your tractor does not have a rollover protection bar, or it's folded down, do not have on your seatbelt. The reason for that is if this tractor did roll over and there was no bar to protect you, you'd be attached to the seat and it would roll over on you. At least with the seatbelt off, you could be thrown from it and have a chance of surviving. So we're always going to run it with the rollover protection bar up, and we're always going to have our seatbelt on all the way across our lap. For working on or with machinery, so that's going to be some sort of shirt,
pants, either work pants or jeans, not sweatpants, not pajama pants, a good pair of boots, safety glasses or sunglasses. And if you're working outside in the sun a lot, make sure you have a hat and make sure you have some water with you. Whenever you get on or off a tractor, make sure you use 3 points of contact. So 2 hands, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 hand. Make sure you always use the steps and the grab rails that are provided by the manufacturer. So we're going to climb up, hanging on the whole time. Once we get up here, we're just going to sit right down in the seat. Put our seatbelt on. Get off the tractor. Once everything's shut off, we're going to release the seatbelt. Stand up. Turn around backwards. Use the same railings again. Use our 3 points of contact. We're going to step down off the tractor. What we are not going to do, we're not going to come down forward. Chances of slipping at this angle is a lot easier. There's not much room to put your heels on here. It's made to put your toes on these steps. We're definitely not going to just, swing and jump off. We're not going to just do a cannonball off of here. Turn around, use that contact, 3 points, down. We're safe.